3/4 of us these days are dying from heart disease, cancer, diabetes.
When polychronic essentially is if you have 3 or more conditions, you'd be considered a polychronic patient. More doctor visits, having to meet multiple specialists.
Treating these conditions as single conditions is just not right or not sufficient. Perhaps that's too late. Well, hello and welcome. I'm Tom Nodine, the host of the Human Life Expectancy channel. And today I am delighted to be with Vijai Chandra, who is a doctor, entrepreneur, and angel investor, and the creator of Jolt, which we'll be talking more about in our time together. So welcome, Vijai. How are you?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you?
That's great. That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey? What brought you to create Jolt today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I graduated as a medical doctor, and soon after that, I saw gaps in, how clinical care doesn't always translate to outcomes. And I saw, whether it's administrative burden or the bureaucracy of healthcare, or just a whole host of gaps across the healthcare value chain. And I saw that technology could bridge this gap in a huge way. And I started looking into various facets of technology, and one of them being digital health, which is the digitization, digital transformation of healthcare. So that part was a core piece, and it led me to surprisingly led me to drug testing, and workplace compliance, and that led me to how I could use digital health. I got the confidence to use digital health to improve outcomes, which I saw in the drug testing world and enforcing workplace compliance. So yeah, eventually I decided, okay, I think women impact or are stewards or leaders in health. A lot of data showed that. My personal experience showed that, and we decided to create Jolt and focus on women.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Let me slow you down a little bit, though, or take you a little bit back. I mean, as I think more broadly about healthcare, I'm pretty sure you and I both agree that there's some real issues out there. There's an epidemic of obesity. 3/4 of us these days are dying from heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and other non-communicable diseases that either are a function of our behaviors, our diets, our exercise, our stress, sleep habits as well, or they're a function of what medications we're using. And especially in the area of obesity, there's a huge amount going on right now in medications. But absolutely, I believe one of the issues is that access to those medications and access to the right, I'll call them behavioral interventions for people, whether it's diet or exercise, they could be improved. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. What you're referring to, the way chronic conditions, the way we're looking at it at Jolt is as polychronic conditions. So we're looking at obesity, diabetes. It could be even cancer, and various facets of chronic conditions like PCOS in the case of women. All of these come under, you can bring them under the idea of a polychronic patient. And
actually, would you do me a favor and just define polychronic for our
yeah,
listeners?
Absolutely. So when polychronic essentially is if you have 3 or more conditions, you'd be considered a polychronic patient, and that just means going more doctor visits, having to meet multiple specialists, and there are people, hypertension or diabetes, or you could be suffering with again, obesity or and yeah, so essentially if you have 3 or more conditions, that is you're a polychronic patient.
Yeah, let me stop you there, because I think that's really important. Increasingly, it does seem like treating these conditions as single conditions is just not right or not sufficient. If somebody just goes on a diet, that may not be enough. If somebody just uses Ozempic or whatever the drug is, that might not be enough. And increasingly, it does seem like there are a range of conditions which, candidly, we all succumb to as we get older and older. And rather than treat them separately, which is what current healthcare seems to be doing, it's, when you have cancer, they treat you for cancer. And I'm not saying that that's inappropriate, but what I am saying is perhaps that's too late in some sense. Isn't there a way to kind of head these off at the pass, see what's going on earlier, and make some changes when you have a chance to change, whether it's behaviors or using the right medications? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Absolutely. Yeah, most chronic conditions have a metabolic basis, and you can significantly improve your metabolic health or function through behavioral changes. And by targeting one condition, you can influence other conditions. And the current healthcare system doesn't do that well because it's not rewarded. You're rewarded to treat diabetes, and we can spend hours talking about the healthcare payer system, but the incentives are misaligned. Seeing
but specifically talk about how you think they're misaligned. Well, what do you think the misalignment is?
Essentially, a physician is trained to see your condition in isolation, and he's trained to treat that in isolation.
Yes.
Very few physicians look at the patient holistically because, one, they don't have the time, because they're not, if they're part of a healthcare system, and most independent practitioners are shutting their doors because they're not able to handle RCM, they're not able to handle running a practice. And so they quit their practice and they join a healthcare system. And when you're part of a system, you're expected to see n number of patients within a very short time. So all of these things, and then, then there's the coding, the billing. So if
it has to be billed against a specific condition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as a physician, I'm going to be billed, or the system, I'm going to be billed for diabetes or for emergency or for cancer. I'm not going to be, and while I could stack those, and of course that's how it's done. We're just not trained to look at the root cause, Tom.
Yeah.
That's reality. We're not trained to look at a patient systemically. And even though we read about systemic health, and I think it's because we live in a society that rewards quick thinking, quick action. And while that's great in certain areas, and we need to be very quick in reducing bureaucracy, which is what we aim to do at Joel. Like, we want to. But when it comes to addressing these polychronic conditions, we need a system, a framework, care that's holistic, and that's targeted. Yeah.
Vijay, thank you for spelling that out. I think that's really important and really clear. This polychronic conditions that many of us suffer from are best suited in a more systemic, broad-based approach. So if there is to be such an approach, where do you think testing fits in to that kind of an approach?
Yeah, I think testing is foundational. So, some of us may be familiar with, Maslow's hierarchy. You have the basic needs, and then you have, self-actualization at the very top. And, we're all aspiring to find our purpose, and, we're all trying to go to that very top. And if you take that reference, the pyramid as a reference, you can visualize the foundation to be testing, because if you don't know what's going on, how do you know which direction to go in? And while there are so many modalities of testing, blood work reveals a lot, and then you have MRI, CT, and imaging reveals a lot, but there are other forms of testing that I'd like to talk about as well. Yeah.
Let's talk about them. Well, what are you thinking?
I think epigenetic testing is groundbreaking. I think it can, earlier I attributed metabolic health as a key determinant, of significantly decreasing the probability of chronic conditions and so forth. And epigenetic test directly reveals, a person's metabolic health, at a great degree, unlike any other test. Blood biomarkers do a decent job of, signaling to the physician, like how the patient's doing, but it's not a good approximation for really understanding the patient holistically. And I think, with epigenetic testing, understanding their biological age, starting with simple as that, and then getting into, an epigenetic test can also reveals if there are certain pathways that are affected, certain, within within the person, and we can address them directly through diet modifications, exercise, and of course medications.
That's great. Well, Vijay, you know that I agree with you, and listeners to this channel will know that I agree with you on that. The way that epigenetic tests can, for the first time, tell you what your biological age is, which can be younger or older than your chronological age, allows you to see, well, are you doing better or worse if you track it over time? And that then in turn allows you to say, well, which diets are working for me, which exercise routines are working for me, and even which medications are working best for me, just purely on the biological age side. But then there's also the disease side. Our diseases impact, the diseases we've had impact our epigenome, and in a way that can be read long term. So very quickly from an epigenetic test, you can tell what major diseases has somebody suffered from, or might they be suffering from right now. And early detection of these diseases, as we know, is critical for curing them and getting a good outcome. So the behavioral interventions, the warnings of new diseases, as well as biological age, we agree with you. We think epigenetic tests can be a really important part of this effective treatment of polychronic conditions that really are at an apex right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. But there are other tests too, right? Your other company focuses on drug and alcohol testing of various types. Are there other tests that, what are your thoughts about how other testing types other than epigenetics fit into this framework?
Yeah, I think, we can look at testing in two lenses. One would be the digital biomarkers. A lot of us are using smartwatches or whatnot. I think Apple seems to have a monopoly on that, and which is great, I think, as long as it benefits our health. But digital biomarkers, I think, have a role to play. On the other side of the spectrum, you have tissue-based biomarkers. Whether it's from saliva, like we could do an epigenetic test with that, or blood biomarkers, or imaging, right? So all of them help us triangulate where the patient is, and I think my view is not trying to get as much data, about it's not so much about just getting all the data we need. It's more to do with getting the right data, and so I think epigenetic testing, I think, should be foundational, meaning indispensable. So if somebody wants to start a treatment, or if, let's say, they're being diagnosed, I think an epigenetic test should be like just a default. And one should also get it done once a year so that they know where they are. So that's with that aside, every other test, I think, can be done on an episodic basis, meaning when there's a requirement. An MRI, if there's a need, I think an MRI is worth it. There are companies that are promoting annual, scans, and there is a case to be made for those. But yes, Tom, I would say I would focus on digital biomarkers, and I would focus on epigenetic testing, and I would focus on, of course, getting my HbA1c checked, periodically, and just getting a few key biomarkers checked regularly. Your vitamin D levels are crucial, your B12s are crucial, but I think your doctor is gonna guide you through those tests. But epigenetic testing, I don't think is talked about. I think you're probably the only person, probably globally, that's talking about it as much as I can think of, and all the credit to you there. But yeah, I think our intention is to make epigenetic testing foundational in delivering care.
Great. Great. And all of this is part of what we've discussed many times as kind of a test, consult, and treatment framework. Or first you do a test, and then you consult with a doctor that knows how to interpret that test and knows how to make sure that the results make sense for you and come up with what the medical necessity is, and then use that to guide the treatment. But today, yes, I mean, epigenetic tests can increasingly be done through the mail, right? Spit in a tube, send it in. And you're right that you can find out a huge amount of things from that. So does it cover absolutely everything? No, it doesn't, but it covers a lot. And it's covering more and more all the time, as we're discovering. And the price is coming down, and it's easy to do through the mail. So that if you use that as, I think you once described as kind of the rails for, for guiding treatment, you then use that as the data, work with a doctor to figure out, all right, which are the exact interventions that make sense for this person, and then provide them that treatment. Wouldn't it be great if there were one place to go for all of those things?
Right. So that's why we created Jolt. While Jolt is currently focused on addressing weight loss for women, we have the framework of testing, consult, and get your prescription all from your home. We are focused on radically reducing the barriers to access, and we believe on-demand healthcare is where consumer health is going towards. And yeah, I think we're what really bothers us, Tom, across the healthcare ecosystem is the bureaucracy of healthcare. And like I said earlier, we could spend hours talking about the complexities and what individuals go through. And I don't think we should put ourselves through so many so many challenges to get quality care. So yeah, we want to address polychronic conditions for women, and we're starting with weight loss. And we expect to move into diabetes, PCOS, and other chronic conditions that women suffer every day.
Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, access is a huge issue. There are many people that do not have good health insurance here in the United States. And even among those who do have it, as we said, the current healthcare system focuses on treating ailments once you have them, rather than identifying them early or finding behaviors or other means of avoiding the polychronic conditions that are literally killing 3/4 of us. Yeah. So, huge opportunity there. But even that's just within a US framework. Have you thought at all about other countries and what do you think the need might be there?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So we've studied India and how our framework could apply for Indian women. And while there are while the challenges are different, the healthcare ecosystem is significantly different. The pain points with regards to access is largely similar. India, on top of that, India has another challenge where you have millions, we're talking about hundreds of millions of women who don't have access to a physician. So being able to get a test, consult, and get prescription right from their home, could be from their local town or from the village, is something we aim to do. And and by essentially reducing the barrier to access, Tom. So that's our mantra here. In the US, we definitely see areas where women have, I mean, there may not be a pharmacy nearby, or there may not be a certain they may not have certain access. Even in the US, we see that, but it's really extreme in India, and we hope to address that.
That's fantastic. So if people want to find out more about Jolt, what should they do?
They should visit jolthealth.com and subscribe, and stay tuned and learn more, and join us in transforming healthcare for women.
That sounds fantastic. I hope they all do. I'm certainly interested. On top of that, this is a big job. There's a lot to do. If we're really talking about revolutionizing access to healthcare, that's a big, big nut to crack. And it's going to take a lot of people and a lot of partners to do that. And so just speaking for myself, I'm delighted to meet you. I'm delighted to work with you, partner with you, to kind of realize this shared vision that we have. It's going to take people that know epigenetics. It's going to take people that know drug testing. It's going to take people that really understand obesity and the current obesity drugs. It's going to take people that have access to those drugs and can provide them. And as we sit here today, there really aren't many places like Jolt where you can go and kind of get all those things. And it's going to take a lot of partners to do it. And just wanted to say that we're delighted to work with you toward this amazing goal.
Yeah, we're very excited about the opportunity, and yeah, we're all honored to be a part of this journey with you, Tom.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vijay.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.